construction and the built environment are environmental issues, and I want to speak specifically about housing. We're sitting in a pub in a community where just along the road, rack concrete affects tenants and owner-occupiers of properties, tenants who can't get rehoused by the council, owner-occupiers, some of whom I know that bought their properties, which are now worthless. And nobody's coming up with a solution about how these things are going to be resolved. We need to speak about concrete issues affecting working class people, and housing is a major one. I'm from Kincorth, just across the road. I hope I'm still safe. Housing's a major issue there as well. I've been going along to Community Council every month, batting my head against the brick wall. We've got 69 voids in Kincorth. That's 69 empty council properties available for rent, 4 of which are beyond repair and need repaired because they've been vandalised. Fair enough, but the other 65 have been sitting empty in some cases for years. We've got a council housing waiting list, hundreds if not thousands of people. People are having to go in every morning and bid for a council tenancy. We've got a problem in Torry with rack. We've got empty vacancies in Kincorth, but nobody seems to be putting 2 and 2 together. And the other major issue in Kincorth is, of course, they demolished my secondary school, Kincorth Academy, about 5-6 years ago to build council housing. 15 years ago, they demolished my primary school, Craighill, in Kincorth, to build council housing. And as we sit here, both of these sites are open and derelict. It basically look like the Luftwaffe have come across and bombed them. And you have people resident in Kincorth having to live next to that. Now, I did my bit for democracy end of last year. I went and saw Stephen Flynn. I went and saw Audrey Nicholl, Alex Nicholl. I went to the Toon House with Christian and I's buddies. I've been to Community Council, say, what's going on? What's going on with these sites? First, I was told, we're at war with Ukraine, we can't build these houses. It's COVID-19, we can't build these houses. In the interest of time, do you have a question? Then, no, let me finish. This is important. This is called democracy. Then it was the cost of the building materials. But at the end of the year, we were told that the contracts had been signed and everything was ready to rock to build these properties, and not a single brick has been built. So the question is to prospective candidates and all these parties, all the rhetoric and all the reassurances you get, when is urgent action going to be taken in Aberdeen to help homeless people living in temporary accommodation, hostels, hotels, sleeping in the streets in some cases, to get them into these vacant council properties? Because at the moment, nothing seems to be happening.
Thank you. And we've been working, of course, as well on the fact that loads of houses go empty, is that many of the houses that are there are completely unfit for human habitation and need more resourcing for heating, energy efficiency to make them suitable for people to live in. And of course, that's a climate issue as well. So we'll start with Nurul.
So I think the situation with RAC, which I know a little about, and I know Councillor Allard is here as well, who's in the administration managing this. This hasn't been dealt with anywhere near as fast as it should have been. And it hasn't been going the way I certainly would have liked it. I certainly would have liked to have seen much more support to the communities given, much more engagement to the communities given than there has been. I hope we can continue to work with ISMP colleagues on resolving that soon, but it is still work in progress, unfortunately. I don't know quite where we're going to end up with that, but I know that we're committed to try to make it work. In terms of the voids, though, I think it is a little bit more complicated than just saying there's so many voids. Some of the voids, as pointed out by the chair, was that they're not habitable. So there needs to be, and there has been done, assessments about what can be brought back into stock and used for housing immediately. But some of that takes time, unfortunately. If it was up to me, I'd invest the time and effort and just hire and just get it done. Because whatever we're paying now to house people in hotels or temporary accommodation is far, far more than we'd pay to put the situation correct with voids and just move them to a place where they can actually start calling a home. I'm sorry to hear about the secondary school and the primary school. I do know of that situation, and in slight defence to our officers, they were correct. We did have COVID-19, and we got the Ukraine war, and since Brexit, which was frankly a disaster, many prices have gone up as well. Many tradesmen have left the country as well. So we're struggling to, even if we had the plans and we had the money, to find the workers to be able to build new houses. But I'd certainly looking at brownfield sites to build more houses and identify where our communities can develop. But just building houses isn't enough. I think we have to build communities, and what that means is that there needs to be amenities there. There needs to be perhaps a doctor's surgery, perhaps a primary school, perhaps better transportation. All of these things need to go in to building a community rather than just houses. Thank you.
Yeah, so on RAC, I'm going to be totally honest with you. It took me a very interesting conversation with an expert to really understand what was going on, because I didn't know anything about this. This is not my area of expertise. But he was saying to me that a lot of these properties actually should have individual assessments, because some of them still could be used, or some of them will need to essentially, some of them might need fully demolished, some might only need I say only, it's a big job, but the roof situation, God, I wish he was here, because he could explain it a lot better than me, but maybe the roof replaced. So there was a lot of different solutions around that I wasn't aware of. And I think, to be honest, I'm going to give councillors a small bit of benefit of the doubt. I think there was probably, and I wasn't there, but there was probably an element of fear that there might be a Grenfell situation where all of these buildings collapsed, and then and these people die, and then they'll be the ones blamed because they didn't do anything about it. So I think there was a bit of a panic in order to get those people out as quickly as possible, without necessarily having a proper plan, or at least having proper engagement with the community in the way they should. But I don't have the solutions for that in a lot of that cases. I think it is going to be something that's going to take time. One of the things I would say is specifically to the owner-occupiers, because I think their situation is slightly different. There's been a lot of, I was speaking to one of them who was saying, well, where are we going to get the money to either relocate or to buy a new house or to fix the existing property that we have? And a lot of these were sold during Thatcher's right to buy. So as far as I'm concerned, the UK government should be sending Aberdeen City Council the bill for that, because that was their policy, and they should be the one actually helping the council to fund any relocations or repairs that need to be done. When it comes to homelessness more generally, so I think there's a twin track approach needed. There is a need to build more houses, and one of the things that I was very adamantly opposed to, but at the time couldn't do anything about, was the social housing budget cut that came down from the Scottish Government, which was almost £200 million. I think that needs to be reversed, but again, they need money from the UK government in order to do that. The other thing was the housing bill that was published, which was looking at rent controls. I would very much, now the Greens aren't in government, I would really hope our SNP colleagues pushed forward living rents demands for full rent controls that actually not just stops the inflation of rents, but actually took the prices down, because that's what people need right now. So in order to prevent homelessness, we need to stop people losing their homes in the first place, as well as building new ones. And we also need to look at the planning reform again. We keep coming back to planning, but it's really important. Social housing provisions that developers are supposed to stick to are too often waved away. So in Aberdeen, for example, there was a policy where the city centre developers could wave away social housing provision. I think that's barmy. Really is barmy, to be honest, and it shouldn't be allowed. I understand that it may put some developers off, but quite frankly, we don't want developers who don't take their social responsibility seriously. So they can take their money and shove it somewhere else if that's their attitude, because we need social housing. So I don't have all the answers, but I hope some of those policies would have an impact on some of the things that you're looking at. Oh, and the issue about empty properties. Aberdeen City Council did bring, and I still believe have an empty property officer. They probably need to look at expanding that team and looking at the ways that we can actually get people back into those empty properties.
Thanks. Kirsty?
So a lot of this is not something that an MP could do anything about, right? Because an MP doesn't have say over the planning policy, an MP doesn't have say over council house building, an MP doesn't have say over a huge number of these things. Nonetheless, I'm not going to dodge the question. I'll give you my views, but I'll start with a bit that we could do something about if we were elected to Westminster, which is the capital budget. The capital budget for the Scottish Government has been slashed by the UK Government, right? We need the capital money. Specifically, our fiscal plans that are laid out in our manifesto allow fiscal flexibility in order to invest in public sector infrastructure, right? So in order to invest in stuff that we need, like council houses. In government in Scotland, the SNP cancelled the right to buy, which allowed councils to be able to build again, allowed them to be able to build council houses, because they couldn't justify on the basis of best value building a council house that would cost them 80 grand to build it, that they would they'd have to sell for 20 grand in a few years' time. They weren't allowed to build because it didn't meet the best value criteria. So cancelling the right to buy made a massive difference. Personally, I would like to see much more in the way of council houses. I do like other social housing as well, but I would like to see a huge amount more council properties being built. There are specific areas in which we need it. I don't mean geographical areas, I mean things like one bedroom properties. Actually, we could do with a lot more one bedroom properties, because there are a lot of the kind of homeless population, or population who are homeless and roofless are sort of two different things. I would class somebody as homeless if they're sofa surfing. For example, that would be my definition of homeless. If you're unable to, if you don't have a place that's your home, if you're having to rely on others to house you, then I would class you as homeless. There's a lot of that population who are kind of moving around, dotting about, who are looking for one bedroom properties. So there needs to be more of them. There also needs to be more family properties with gardens. We've got an increase in the number of kids being diagnosed with neurodivergent conditions, for example, who often need garden spaces. We've got an increase in the number of kids that are going to orchard brain stuff. We've got really complex needs. Again, we need accessible properties. Some of the building that the council is undertaking in, for example, Old Croft Place, in around Manor, the new development at Byron Park, relatively new development, last 10 years. I'm getting old if I'm saying news, last 10 years. But, those are accessible properties and based on actually what do people in Aberdeen need. So I think that's really important. And then just lastly on the stuff around the development not taking place and the issues in Kincorth with that piece of land, I do think the secondary school site does look particularly crap, to be honest with you. It really could do with some work being done, or at least it being made to look a bit better in the meantime. But there was a perfect storm with COVID. The issues around Brexit, so huge number of tradespeople leaving the country and not able to do work, with the Ukraine war and the increase in the costs of materials and the increase in costs of work. So I'm not trying to justify the fact that this hasn't happened. I would still like to see it having happened, but there was a number of issues that compounded on top of each other in order to kind of push things back. But I would like to see the developments happening as soon as possible in order that we can have mere consensus.
Thank you.